Every journey begins somewhere, and this one begins here, with the everyday self. The version of you that has a name, a job, and a list of responsibilities. A version that maybe works hard, shows up, and tries to be good, and still sometimes feels like something is missing. And that feeling is not failure, it's the first signal of awakening. This level, what we call level 0, is where most people live. It's where identity feels solid, where I am who I think I am feels like the truth. But here's the invitation. What if who you think you are is actually a story? In Buddhist psychology, the self is not seen as a fixed thing, but a pattern, a collection of habits, of thoughts, of roles arising from causes and conditions. And in integral theory, Ken Wilber reminds us that growth is both vertical and horizontal, where we're not just waking up, we're also growing up. And that means that you can have moments of spiritual insight, but still be trapped in the psychological identity that you built to survive. And that identity, it formed long before you could speak. Developmental psychologists tell us before we had language, we were learning how to be. We learned how to receive love, attention, and safety. And to get those things, we shaped ourselves. We wore masks, and then we forgot they were masks. Now, none of this is wrong. It's human. It's beautiful even. But if you made it to this point, if you're watching this, then some part of you knows that it's time to look deeper. This level is not about fixing yourself. It's about seeing yourself. I mean, really seeing. So we're going to be exploring these 5 lenses. First, the mask of normal. The roles you've worn so well, you forgot you were acting. Second, the self that was shaped, how identity forms through early conditioning. Third, the story you live in, the unconscious narrative that directs your life. And then fourth, cracks in those stories, those moments when life no longer fits a script. And then fifth, the seed of questioning, where curiosity arises and the old self begins to loosen its grip. And this structure draws on the path of the Bodhisattva, who doesn't just awaken to the truth and walk away, but turns toward suffering with love and wisdom. It draws from myth and meaning making from Joseph Campbell's hero journey, where the first stage is refusing the call until something deeper pulls us forward. And it draws from your own lived experience. You've been walking towards this moment for your whole life. This is not self-help. This is self-seeing. So take a breath. You don't need to become someone new. You only need to meet who's already been here, beneath those roles, beneath the story and the mask. Welcome to level 0, the everyday self. Before we begin with this first layer, this is a series of levels that we will be going over on understanding the self. So like and subscribe to stay notified when the next video is released. So let's begin with the first layer, the mask of normal. We wear masks so well that we forget they're not our skin. So let's begin with a simple question. Who are you? Most people answer with a role. I'm a mom. I'm a professional. I'm a financial professional. I'm a helper. I'm just trying to do my best. But look closely, those aren't you. They're masks. Costumes you learn to wear so you could belong. From an early age, we learn how to behave to stay safe, to get love, to feel accepted. We watch, we adjust, we adapt. We become the responsible one, the funny one, the quiet one, the one who doesn't make waves. And it works. The world rewards the mask. But here's the thing. Over time, you forget it's a performance. You start to say, that's just who I am. The mask fuses to the face. And then, one day, something doesn't fit. You're doing everything right. You're saying all the right things. You're showing up, and yet something feels off. Heavy, dull, like you're living someone else's life. This isn't failure. This is the beginning of awareness. And noticing that you're performing even when no one's asking you to, you've rehearsed it so long that it became real. But there's a part of you, quiet, but constantly watching the whole thing. And that part is starting to stir. So here's a simple reflection. Write down the roles that you play in your life. Friend, leader, caregiver, provider, fixer, achiever. Now circle the ones that you perform, even when you're tired, even when you're alone. And these roles aren't wrong. They've helped you get here. But now ask, where did they come from? Who taught you to wear them? Because before you had words, you were already learning how to be. And in the next chapter, we're going to explore how the self was shaped, how your earliest environments conditioned your identity long before you had any say in it. The mask is only the surface, so let's start peeling back the layers. The self that was shaped. Before you had words, you were already learning how to be. You were shaped long before you had a name for what you were becoming. And this is what we forget. We think that we chose our personality. We think that we just are naturally driven or anxious or accommodating. But most of who we think we are was formed in the dark, in the unconscious. As a child, you were tuned like an instrument. You learned quickly what brought closeness and what brought silence, and what made people smile and what made people leave the room. You may not remember it, but your nervous system does. You learn to be small so others could feel big. You learn to help to feel wanted. You learn to succeed to feel seen. You learn to disappear to feel safe. But this wasn't your fault. This was survival. Love, safety, belonging. These are primal needs. And we will bend ourselves in 1,000 times just to get to them. And so a self was shaped, not by curiosity, but by necessity. And over time, this shaped self begins to bundle the strategies and reactions and became what you called me. But what if that version of you was just one strategy among many? What if that personality isn't a fixed thing, but a set of adaptive patterns still running? And this is what developmental psychology has shown us again and again. We become what we needed to be. And unless we pause to reflect, those early conditions, they continue to make choices for us. And we think we're free, but we're often just repeating. So here's a practice. Complete this sentence. As a child, I learned to be loved because I had to. Now go slowly. Let the answer rise from your body, not just your mind. Maybe it's I had to stay quiet. Maybe I had to impress. I had to take care of everyone else first. I had to never make a mistake. And then ask yourself, is that still true now? And this is the first loosening. When we see that the self we wear was shaped by someone else's conditions, we begin to find the space to meet ourselves differently. The shaped self is not bad. It's not false. It's just incomplete. And underneath it, there's something older, more whole, and is waiting to be remembered. In the next chapter, we'll look at how this shaped self becomes a story, a personal mythology that we live inside. And often, we don't even know we're telling it. So let's step into the story you live in. Once the self is shaped, it starts telling a story. And not just any story, your story. A personal mythology that says, this is who I am. This is how life works. This is what I have to do to be okay. And here's the thing. We don't just tell these stories, we live inside of them. The story becomes a lens, a filter between you and reality. It tells you who to trust, when to speak, whether you deserve rest, whether love must be earned. And the wild part is, most of us have never consciously chosen the story we live in. It's been pieced together through experiences, assumptions, and survival moments. And you learned, I'm only valuable when I'm productive. If I ask for help, I'll be a burden. And people always leave. I need to have it all together. I'm not enough. I have to become enough. And over time, these beliefs form a kind of script. And you keep playing the lead role without even realizing it's a play. And we all do this. It's not weakness. It's the mind trying to organize your reality. In Buddhism, they call it conceptual proliferation. The tendency of the mind to spin stories about everything, especially about the self. And it's not inherently bad. Stories give us structure, meaning, and coherence. But when we mistake the story for reality, we suffer. So how do we begin to notice our own story? And here's a simple practice. Finish these 2 sentences. Life is, fill in the blank. And I always, fill in the blank. Let the answers come quickly without editing. We want it to just be fresh. So you might hear, life is hard. Life is unfair. Life is something I have to control. I always mess things up. I always take care of others first. And whatever comes up, pause and look at it. Just ask yourself, where did I learn this? Whose voice is it? And is it true? And not true sometimes, but always. And that's where the story starts to dissolve. And not by force, but by inquiry. Because once you can see the story, you're no longer trapped inside of it. You can step outside of the page and into presence. But here's the catch. Even when the story doesn't work anymore, we often keep telling it. Why? Because it's familiar. And familiarity feels like safety. It's an ingrained habit. It's our habit energy. So what brings us to the next layer? What happens when the story stops working, but we keep living it anyway? That's what we explore in the next chapter. Cracks in the story. Sometimes the story we live in starts to break. We try harder. We do all of the things. We follow the script that was supposed to lead to peace, success, and belonging, and yet something aches. We find ourselves asking, why am I doing everything right and still suffering? And this is where the cracks begin to show. Life bumps up against the edges of the identity that we built. A relationship ends. A job no longer fulfills us. We reach that goal and feel nothing. The rules we were living by stop working, and we don't know what to replace them with. It's disorienting. Because we were taught that suffering meant something was wrong with us. But what if that's not true? What if suffering is not a failure, but a signal? In Buddhism, suffering, or dukkha, isn't just pain. It's the friction of living out of alignment with what is real. It's what happens when we cling to what no longer serves us, when we resist change, when we mistake the map for the terrain. And most often, it shows up in subtle ways. You're constantly exhausted, not from doing too much, but from being someone you're not. You're irritated at the people around you because they're not playing the roles that your story demands. Or you're anxious because your identity is built on fragile rules that you're terrified of breaking. Or you feel stuck, not because you lack options, but because every option threatens the story of who you think you are. And these cracks are not a problem. They're the beginning of the truth. The self is trying to hold together something that wants to fall apart. And the pain you feel, that's the resistance. So here's the practice. Ask yourself, where in my life am I doing everything right and still suffering? And then pause. Don't rush to fix it. Just listen. What belief is being threatened there? What rule are you unconsciously obeying? Often, it's a rule like, I must always be needed. I can't disappoint anybody. If I stop performing, I'll be invisible. If I rest, I'll fall behind. But here's the truth. Rules like that weren't made by the part of you that knows peace. They're made by the part of you that feared being left behind, being unloved. And when the story starts to crack, it means something deeper is trying to emerge, and not a new mask, not a better version of the old identity, but something quieter, older, and more free. And that's where we go next. In the final segment of this level, we step through the first real doorway. The moment you ask, not what should I do, but who am I without all of this? And that's the beginning of awakening. That's the seed of questioning. There's a moment that changes everything. It often doesn't look like much on the outside, but on the inside, it's a crack of light. A single question begins to unravel the whole performance. Is this really who I am? Not the achiever, not the helper, not the strong one, not the smart one, not the invisible one. Just me. Without the roles, without the story, and without the mask. That question, who am I, is ancient. It's the question sages have sat with for lifetimes. The one behind every spiritual path, every awakening. But you don't have to be a monk or a mystic to ask it. You just have to be honest. Because this moment isn't about adding new beliefs. It's about letting go of the old ones just long enough to feel what's underneath. Most of us live like we're broken. Like if we just fix this part or learn that thing, then we'll finally be whole. But what if that's all backwards? And what if you're already whole? And the only thing in the way is the belief that you're not. You're not broken. You're not lost. You're not behind. You've been living someone else's definition of you. And now, for the first time, you're starting to turn inward. Not to correct yourself, but to meet yourself. And that's what this question opens. Not an answer, not a solution, just space. Breathe. Possibility. So here's the final practice in this level. Sit in stillness, even if only for a minute, and ask yourself gently, who am I without the story? And don't try to answer it. Let the silence speak. Let the mind soften. Let the body breathe. And let the question do its work. Because when that question is asked, with sincerity, not as a trick, but as a turning, a seed is planted. A seed of awareness, a seed of freedom. And once it's planted, you'll never see yourself the same way again. And this is where level 0 ends. But your journey is just beginning. And next, we step into level 1, cracks in the self. The mask is loosening, the story is cracking. The question is alive. And now you're ready to begin. And if you found this helpful or interesting, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.